Good afternoon. My name is Swati Taneja and is Training Production Director within Informa. I'm delighted to welcome all our attendees today on an informative webinar on employee engagement. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. The webinar will be led this afternoon by Tom Raftery. And before we begin, I'd like to give you a few rules for the next 45 minutes in terms of our housekeeping. You can type your questions throughout the session. Time will be allocated in the end for the speaker to address your questions. Unanswered questions will be posted with answers to our HR blog. And the slides that you'll be seeing for the next 45 minutes will be made available on a SlideShare page, and the link will be emailed to you. The recording of the webinar will also be made available to download. The link for the same will be emailed in the next couple of days. Please do take the time to complete a post-webinar survey that will pop up at the end of the webinar. Now I'd like to introduce you to our presenter for this afternoon, Tom Raftery, who's the founder and director about a firm called It's All About People, a human capital consultancy based in Dubai. He has over 30 years of international experience and has extensive experience in HR strategy, processes and systems, organizational redesign, performance, compensation and benefits, and leadership development. With that, I hand over to your webinar leader for the afternoon, and I hope you enjoy the next 45 minutes to an hour. I'll switch over to our trainer and our speaker for this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be here and invited to talk to you for the next 45 minutes about employee engagement. Let me pose a question. I hope some of you can respond. Are you all totally switched on at work? Do you all find it engaging, empowered? Are you really happy in your job? I hope some of you are, but it's a big issue. Are people happy in their job? What do they need to do to become engaged? I think let's talk about Corporate Leadership Council's definition of employee engagement. They talk about two levels of engagement. Firstly, emotional engagement. It's very much about the pride, enjoyment, the meaning we get out of work, you know, about the work we do in the organization that we work for, that emotional engagement. Do we come into work in the morning and we're dying to get into work, bouncing on our toes to get into work? Then you talk about rational engagement. And this is very much about saying the employee feels as though the organization is doing something, both financially, professionally, or doing something with their own development, and doing things in their interest. So that's the rational side. So when you look at engagement, there's both emotional and rational elements of that. And when you want to get engagement, you've got to address both. Now, why is it important? I think there's something that I've learned from my days when I did an MBA about understanding the dynamics of business. And one thing I always remember is that people are the only sustainable means of competitive advantage. If people don't turn up for work in the morning, you don't have a business. And that's absolutely critical. So engagement is going to be important for many things. You want people to enjoy their job, right? To be happy in their work in terms of what they do. You know, you want people want to feel as though they've got a challenging role. They've got something that they can really get their teeth into that excites them. They also feel as though they've got the chance for development and support in terms of learning, in terms of working on projects, in terms of secondments, in terms of assignments. But above all, we like to be recognized. When was the last time someone turned around to you and said, "Thank you, that was a job well done"? If it hasn't happened for a week or two or a month or two, you've got a bit of a problem. Maybe it's something to do with the organization, but we all like to be recognized in some sort. And obviously it's about being treated fairly and with respect, particularly in this region where we have people from all nationalities, on all levels, all cultures, all religions. Treating people fairly and with respect is absolutely critical to an engaged organization. And if you do this, the company will benefit. So if everyone's engaged, they're happy. In fact, I always find out as a consultant, I worked for many companies over the years, and I always get a sense when I go into a company of what it's like, what it feels like. You walk into a company and you can tell within 10 minutes, is this an engaged organization? Unfortunately, I haven't seen too many cases of that in the past, but hopefully that's going to improve as a result of this. One, I stole it, well I didn't steal it, I borrowed this from Berstin by Deloitte. Berstin is an American company, does a lot of research in change management, leadership development, HR. And they recently did a report on talent management and engagement. And this was part of that. They looked at their predictions for 2015. And right at the center of that is driving engagement and retention. That's an issue companies are dealing with globally. And you can see from that slide all the various things that come to play on that, from the culture to the employment brand to the talent and how you drive and support that, to management and leadership, performance, competencies and the quality of your hires. Because to get good employees, you need to recruit them in the first place, and all that will relate to the environment that you create, the purpose for your organization, its values and mission. Do all the senior managers and managers live the values? Unfortunately, values are great words. It's living them that tends to be the challenge, and tends to be the most difficult part to that. But then if we look at some of the examples of engagement in the GCC, in particular, I pulled out some research from the Gallup survey of 2013, their global workforce. If you look at the GCC, engagement is actually, you've basically only got 26% of the population are engaged, 60% not engaged, and 40% actively disengaged if you look at the UAE. If you look at Saudi Arabia, it's even worse, 80% not engaged. So you can see, obviously, things are not happening. Things are, organizations aren't doing enough to engage their employees. And we all know from the lots of research that highly engaged employees will result in a company being more profitable. People will do more. They will go that extra mile for you if they're engaged, and you don't have to pay for it. But interestingly enough, I pulled out another part of that same presentation which showed that 10% of the actively disengaged employees in MENA region are actually thriving. So you think, well, why is that? Well, if they're disengaged, why are they thriving? Why are they sort of happy? And maybe that's because the focus is on money. What you have, and I'm sure you've got people in your organization who get paid very well but are not happy, always moaning, always disgruntled, but they're staying there because they get paid well. That's probably the reason for that. But as you can see, that the balance of people against being engaged and those against being disengaged, people who have experienced anger or don't experience enjoyment, the more a person's engaged, the more they will experience enjoyment in work, and the less they'll experience such issues such as anger and things like that. So the statistics there for the region means we can do a lot more. And in HR, I suppose in a way you're regarded as the guardians of people and behavior, and therefore what should not be the drivers of employee engagement, you should certainly be the facilitators of employee engagement. So I'll pose to yourself, what are you doing about engagement? I run various training programs with Informa, and I run other programs, and I do consulting work. And one of the things I tend to find out is people think engagement is very much about sending someone a happy birthday greeting when it's their birthday, or taking them out on an away day when they can all play games and things like this. Once that is helpful and it is contributory, ultimately engagement is about how much that person is happy, challenged, recognized and valued in their job. And that often comes through the managers and supervisors. And we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. I just wanted to go on there and just give you a global view on Aon Hewitt's Global Engagement Survey, and you can clearly see from that that the main facility to engage people is career opportunities. We all want to grow. We all want to grow our career. We all want to be successful. So that's globally across the board is seen as number one. If you provide sufficient career opportunities for employees, that will start the process of getting them engaged. Then if you start looking at the global survey, the next one is managing performance. But if you look in our region within Asia Pacific, that comes down quite low. Managing performance and in giving feedback, fair and honest and constructive feedback, many people struggle with in the region. Have done for many years, still struggle with it. It is getting better, but it's an issue that you've still got to work at. Interestingly enough, again, if you look at the issues of pay in the region comes out number 2, not surprisingly. I was running a program today for Informa, and we were talking about the best ways of attracting good talent. And basically everyone was saying money. You know, the thing is, if you attract people just by money, all they're going to do, any extra they want to do, is about what extra money can I get? An engaged workforce is people are prepared to go that little bit more, to go that extra mile, to do that little bit more for the team, for the section, for the department, for the company. That's priceless. You can't pay for that. And once you focus on money, everything you're going to do is going to have a negotiation, and it's all down to money. And you don't really engage people with money. In saying that, you need to get it right, but you don't engage people. So this emphasis on pay is still very strong in the region, and we need to be sort of getting that to sort of, if you look globally, pay doesn't come out till third or fourth over the last couple of years. So it's something we need to be looking at. Don't focus on pay if you want to get engagement. So what do you need to do on the building blocks for engagement? So that's all good and well, Tom, but how do we start the process of engagement? The first thing, you've got to build a business case. In HR, we often say this is a nice thing to do, but engagement is a touchy-feely process and something you can't put your hands around. So, you know, if you're going to get senior management are going to have to be involved in this process, and you're going to need to get them involved. So what are you doing? The thing is, what's the business case? What would a highly engaged workforce do for our bottom line? As I said, there are numerous studies out there on how employee engagement can contribute to increased turnover, increased profit, increased customer loyalty, increased market share. There is stacks of information out there. Start that to build a case. You need to assess where people are now. I think many of you carry out employee satisfaction surveys. It's becoming increasingly popular in the region. But you've got to seek the views of the employees, you've got to seek the views of managers, but also, what about the customers? Interestingly enough, you should be getting the response from your employee survey and compare it to your response from your customer survey or stakeholders and see whether it matches. If that matches, you're going to do very well. In fact, a research done back in the 90s by A.T. Kearney found that those companies that had high levels of both employee and customer satisfaction were more profitable, major growth, major market share penetration that they were able to do. So that's an issue you've got to look at. Where are you at the moment? And what are you going to build engagement on? Everyone's got values. They all define their values. Can you name all your values in your organization? If you can, that's great. Many people can't. But also, a lot of people, a lot of managers in particular, don't live the values. It's great having the words, but it's like saying the check's in the post. There's no real meaning behind it. And what you've got to be doing, particularly with your senior managers, is get them to live the values. That's one of the key foundations. And also expectation. What's the employer expectation and what the employee's expectation? When there's a disparity between that expectation, then you get tension, then you get problems, then you get strikes. Not that we have them in the region. But you've got to manage expectation of both sides to deliver on that. You've got to look at the role of teams. Do you get people working in teams? Do you encourage team working? And how do you manage that? That's also critical to getting engagement. The role of managers, we're going to be talking about that in a minute. I believe that's absolutely critical in how managers manage, and they have a key role in ensuring that engagement works within your organization. And engaging key stakeholders, by that I mean probably the CEO, maybe the chairman, or the senior directors. Getting them to understand that building an engagement framework and working on that will add value. So you need to help them to understand the value of that. Obviously, we all know engagement is around motivation, and we all know the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what we need to be looking at engagement is obviously looking at both the self-fulfillment and ideally the esteem needs of people, the feeling of prestige, the feeling of accomplishment, and that you're getting somewhere not just for yourself, but for your team, for your department, for your organization. But that's got to be built within a solid framework of both the psychological safety and feeling of belonging. So that's fairly straight. I'm just doing that as a reminder, and many of you will know this. But also, a lot comes down to culture. I want you to look at this slide, something I've used in the past in my past consulting experience. Where does your company fit? Think about it for a minute. Where is your company now? Is it caring, paternalistic? Is it exacting, demanding? Maybe even apathetic. If you're going to get a highly engaged workforce, you really want it in that top right-hand corner. High degree of involvement, quite integrative in what it does. So it's got a strong people focus, but a strong performance focus. People are supported. They're recognized. So where is your company in that map at the moment? And where do you want it to be? And it's interesting, I use this in some of my training programs. And quite interestingly, if you're a caring and paternalistic company, you actually probably need to go into exacting and demanding, so you get more focus on performance before you get into the integrative high involvement. You know, that's important. Also, on the other side, if you're a very demanding organization, all about performance, you do need to become more people-focused and maybe getting a little bit more caring or paternalistic, but you can move directly from exacting and demanding into the top right-hand corner, where you're going to have a culture where people will participate, where people can grow, where people can be involved and obviously engaged. So understand where you are, and try and use this if you want to with some of your senior managers and get them to understand where they think they are now and where they need to be. It's a very good talking point. So culture is particularly important. So, sorry, wrong way. Going on to the next slide. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and many of us have to work with the culture that we're in. Often, and this is well known, that you develop a new strategy, new structure, but you don't do anything to change the culture. It's still the old culture. And what you've got to recognize, what sort of culture do you want to create? That starts from the top. It involves getting the values correct. It involves making sure you create an environment that's going to help to drive your new strategy. Unfortunately, a lot of work is spent on new strategy, new structure, but nothing's done about the culture. And then they wonder why it takes so long to get there. So, something for you to think about as well, because engagement is really about the culture that you're trying to create for the organization. So, how do you go about improving engagement? As I said, what tends to happen in the region, people go for away days, they have dinners, they take people out, which is good stuff, but engagement is more than that. And probably why people shy away from engagement is in the too difficult box. Because to really get good employee engagement, you need to tackle it on a number of levels. Firstly, the employee value proposition. Why should employees come to you rather than to your competitor or to another company? You could say money, but money is only part of it. The employees can say, what's in it for me? What are they going to get out of it? Money is important in the region, I understand, but what else are they going to get out of it? But also, what's in it for the company? So the employee value proposition should be say, actually, to come and join us, we're going to do X, Y, Z. But as a company, we're going to be doing 1, 2, 3 for you. And it's making that sort of agreement with each other. And there can be variables on that and how you do it, of engagement. And engagement for you could be different to engagement for another company. But let me tell you a little story a couple of years ago. For a well-known consulting company I was working for, I was having my appraisal. It was my first appraisal after joining, and everything was going okay, as most appraisals do. There was no real problems. Could have probably made more sales, I think, was one of the observations, but service was very good, client feedback was very good, and, yes, it's all going well. And then the partner who was giving me the appraisal said, have you got any questions? And I said, yes. I said, when I came to join the company, you outlined a number of things that the company does for its employees. And then I asked the partner, are you delivering on all of those? And they paused. And they said, that's a difficult question. I said, but it's a question. I said, why is it an appraisal? It's all about what is the employee doing for the company. Now I'm asking, what's the company doing for the employee? And whilst a difficult conversation, the partner recognized that the company could do more and that they hadn't totally agreed, fulfilled their part of the actual proposition. So something to think about. I'm not saying you all go away and challenge your immediate manager on that, but that's what the value proposition is about. Also, you've got to recruit for engagement. You've got to get the right people fitting with your culture. If you get someone in there who's not going to fit with your culture, the culture will chew them up and spit them out. Or what happens is the people adapt to the culture, and that's not often the right way, because their natural instincts is to be whatever it is, entrepreneurial, innovative, or whatever, or their natural instinct could be, I'll do as I'm told. So recruiting the right people for the culture is absolutely critical, because at the end of the day, if you don't, it won't work. And that's also getting the right people in terms of skills and attitude. You won't get engagement unless you get people who have the right attitude and approach and will want to be engaged. Unfortunately, I have seen in my years in the region, and I've been this time, I think I'm coming up to my 10th year in the region. I see a lot of people, and you can see them, their shoulders are down, you can see them walk around, they're not happy in their job. And I've often said to people, why don't you go somewhere else? Why stay here? Because they're not really fitting with the culture, not really fitting with the way things are going. And it's often better to help someone out of the organization into another organization that would more suit their character and their attitude. Reward and recognition, absolutely critical. And in this region, everyone says, yeah, money's important. As I said, there's some discussions I had today, pay is the main motivator. But one thing I learnt in very early days in Comp and Ben was an old saying from an American friend of mine who probably taught me the basics of Comp and Ben. He says, pay is not a motivator, but if it's not right, it's a demotivator. So as I said earlier, if you focus on pay too much, that's all you're going to get. So you've got to get it right. You've got to focus on performance. And you've got to focus on giving honest feedback, and that's critically important in this region. We often don't give feedback, and then people worry, why suddenly everyone's been negative to me? Giving feedback can be constructive, it can be adding value, it can help to grow people. And obviously when you reward, you've got bonus schemes, recognition schemes and everything else, but you've also got to recognize that people have individual needs, and they have choices within that. So you've got to look at the way you reward and recognize people and say, am I delivering what the employees want? Interestingly enough, in some work I've done in the past in Comp and Ben, I said, have you asked the employees what you want? And they said, no, we don't ask them because they'll just say they want more money. So get over it and try to go out there and understand on an adult-to-adult basis what employees want other than just pay. So try to meet individual needs and also celebrate success. You know, when things work well, thank people, recognize them, things like that. I mean, as a manager, when I was here, I regularly used to take people out, buy them lunch, just say thank you, pat on the back. That's what people like the most. Further points on engagement is communication. You've got to, as an organization, be absolutely excellent at communication. And that starts with being totally transparent. How many organizations are totally transparent? We all know within this region the blah blah, the rumor mongering. It happens. If there's lots of rumor in your organization, you're failing on your communication. Communicate even when you don't have something to communicate, because if you don't, people will make it up. They love talking in this part of the world. Everyone knows what everyone else is earning. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing. There are probably a few of you are smiling when I say that. So fill the gaps. Don't hide things. Be transparent if you mean to be transparent as much as you can. And I think companies can be far more transparent than they are at the moment. Look at your communication channel. How do you communicate? How do you get the information out there? How do you get information back? How do you get feedback through that? Continually look at carrying out a communication audit. Look at your channels. Look at your processes. And particularly when there's a problem or an issue, how do you communicate in that? Because that's often the real telling point of how good you are at communication, how you want to engage people. When there's a problem, let them know. In my experience in the past, I've been in organizations where we've had to make people redundant. And management were having a lot of discussions about it. You know what? The employees knew, even once the managers were discussing what's going to happen, that there were going to be redundancies. So tell them, be honest with them, help them through the process. And you win respect. You win respect for people, and that's absolutely critical. Then there's all about learning and engagement. Obviously, career development, get the right sort of training programs, the right sort of experiences, looking at individual growth, individual development plans, gaining exposure to new projects, new initiatives, expanding their knowledge and expertise, absolutely critical. But it's not just about sending people on training programs, because, God, how many billions of dollars has been spent on training in the region? And what value have you got for it? Okay, so how are you capturing that learning, and how is that learning being applied is absolutely critical. And I'm pleased to say there's more coaching and mentoring done within the region, coaching in particular, and that's something that can really help people. And I think there's one thing I always say to many of the people on the programs that I run and I deal with. Many of them are our expatriates. I say, what's your legacy? What are you leaving behind? What are you passing on to ideally the nationals or other people within your organization in terms of learning and knowledge? But ultimately the key part there is about developing managers. Getting managers to understand their role in engagement. They are crucial, and getting them doing the right sort of things, they will add the most value to your engagement. So, coming on to that point, leaders and managers, they're particularly important at that. They must be the champions of engagement. You know, they've got to lead by example. There's a key word there, and a key word that is often missing in many companies in the region: trust. Just look at your organization. How many signatures do you need to get things through? Whether it's a training program, a salary increase, even a leave, you need lots of people to sign it. It's a lack of trust. How can you get an engaged workforce when you have a lack of trust? Why do we do it? I see it, and you know, I was hoping that would have changed over the years, but it's not. So trust is absolutely critical, and that starts at the very top. If you've got your CEO signing off approvals for training programs and leave, please tell him to stop, him or her to stop it. It's adding very little value, and it's destroying trust. It takes a long time to build trust. You can destroy it in an hour, in a minute. But if you build that, you will certainly get a lot of engagement. And then it's looking at your leadership. What are they going to do? How are they going to create that leadership brand and pass it down the organization? And if you work on the elements of trust, build that trust in, you will go a long, long way to getting an engaged workforce. In saying that, managers and supervisors have the biggest influence, as I've said. It's all about living the values. You know, they've got to deliver on the values. They're nice words, but are they living those values every day? As HR professionals, are you making sure your managers live the values? Are you living the values? Right? Because people, that's the way to build trust. This is what you proclaimed as a company, and our vision, our mission, our values. You deliver on that and you start to build a trust. It will take time, right? But you start to do that, you get your managers and supervisors trusting their people more. You can build that environment of trust. But you've got to get your managers and supervisors, you've got to get the right sort of people in that position. Unfortunately, many people are moved into managerial and supervisory positions, and they just don't have the skills, and they don't have the aptitude, and they don't have the confidence to be able to trust their people. They can often be controlling, dogmatic, disciplinarians, and they think they get the most out of people. At the end of the day, people will do what they need to Again, another sort of quote I have is, particularly when it comes down to pay, companies think they're very good when they recruit people and, oh, I got this person quite cheap. And companies sometimes pay just enough so people won't leave. But remember, people will do just enough so they're not terminated. So that's not a growing, engaging sort of environment. So that's something to be aware of. But assessing the managers, getting the right managers and supervisors in place, and making sure you develop them is absolutely critical. So I've talked a lot. Here's some of the key things. You need leaders, inspirational leaders. You need a clear vision that employees can relate to. Where's the company going? And what role do they play in that? Communications, make it open, make it transparent. Okay? Trust. Start to build trust. Start using that word more. And maybe what I'd like to see in some of the value statements, I'd like to see the word trust. Can we try and do that the next time you do your review of your hours? Put trust in there. Also focus on performance. Drive progress and it through individual performance where people can see if they perform, they progress. And it's not always about the financials, but they can get greater opportunities, greater growth. And develop your people for the business and for all their own individual needs. I see a lot of times saying we need them to do this for the business needs, but is it for their own individual needs? And it's balancing what the business needs from people with the individual's needs for growth. That's critically important as well. So create opportunities for growth. Give them opportunity to grow within an organization, take new positions, build knowledge, get smarter at what they do, and take other opportunities. And create a fun environment. You walk around, how many people do you see smiling in your organization? Where's that element of fun? Because if people have fun, not that we could be clowning around all the time, but one thing I've always found where I've worked, if there's an element of fun within an organization, it's massively engaging, particularly within an environment where it's performance driven, where you're given a lot of support and you have a bit of fun. Wouldn't you like to work for an organization like that? Yeah. I can see you nodding your head. Well, I hope I can see you nodding your head. So that's a critical part of it. And the other thing about engagement is the WIIFM. One thing I've learned over the years, if you want people to change, you've got to address the what's in it for me. So when you look at your stakeholders and your leaders, you've got to be sure that you address that in terms of making sure people get engaged. And finally, build a business case and show the impact of that. So in summary then, I think I found this, it really sums up what engagement is about. It's about empowering, enhancing, and enabling. If you get all those, you'll get an engaged workforce, and that's difficult. It's very difficult to do, but it can eventually happen. And then finally, the final point I'd leave with you, from Collins and Porras, who wrote the book Built to Last. And if you look at the Post-it notes, and how was that created? It wasn't accidental. It was the environment. Creative, involved, engaged environment. It didn't happen by accident. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That was quite engaging, I would say. We'll allocate some time now for some questions. So if you would like to ask your presenter for today any questions, you can type them, and we're more than happy to allocate some time now for any questions that you would like to get answers to. But if you don't have any questions, then maybe, Tom, would you like to add something to it? Or, yeah?
Okay, I'd like to ask whether the people on here, what are you doing to create an engaged workforce? I've given you what I think, what I've worked on, some concepts. Could just someone type down what they're doing to build an engaged workforce in the companies you work with? Okay, started to get some questions. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for throwing your questions in. I'll take them one by one. Said, you're doing a project, you said, on employee engagement in your company. That's good. And I think you've got a great opportunity there to show your company how by focusing on employee engagement, they can actually grow. So I think that's a great opportunity, working on a project like that, if you can share it with your senior management. I hope something that you found in here would help you to get that focus, build a business case we talked about. But I think that's pretty good. And I like the way you're working on a project, because some people say, well, this is touchy-feely. What does it mean? People like to touch things. But that's good. Nathalie, creating clear job descriptions with expectations, career planning. Yep. Total. That's the basics. It's the job description is the basic tool of HR. It's like the carpenter without a saw. You've got to have clear job descriptions with expectations. It's interesting, a lot of job descriptions are all about input. Within the job description, you have expected output. What's the degree of performance you'd expect from that? And then linking that into career plans, career maps, individual development plans. But you need to make that the responsibility of the employee, with facilitation from HR through your competency and development frameworks, training, and all the rest of it. So that's particularly important as well. Alwyn D'Souza, what's the difference between employee satisfaction and employee engagement? Employee satisfaction, my understanding is what their view of the job is now. Am I reasonably satisfied across whatever? My pay, the complexity of my job, what I'm being given, what I've got to do, the workload, and whatever. So it's about your satisfaction with a whole range of issues. Employee engagement goes beyond that. Employee engagement means I'm highly motivated to do more. I want to seek out more. I'm highly motivated to go that extra mile, not from a case of fear or because I've been threatened by someone that you've got to finish this before the end of the day. It's because you want to. So it's taking satisfaction to another level. I'm satisfied. I'm okay. Things are okay. But when you're in a position of crisis or when extra work wants to be done, you're prepared to do that a little bit more because you're engaged. You want to come up with new ideas. You want to improve things. So the difference between satisfaction is, well, I'm satisfied in my job. Someone's employee engaged. I want to do more. I want to add more value. Natalie, you're talking about motivating to achieve. Yeah, we all want to achieve. We all want to. Could you imagine that everyone in your company was motivated to achieve? What would your company look like? Rather than people say, I'm just going to do enough, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm disengaged, or whatever. If you had everyone massively engaged, can you imagine how powerful your organization would be? And try to capture that in financial terms. Interesting. Saeed, started going for recognizing the staff activities first. Not sure what you're meaning by that, but by staff activities, yeah, recognition. Saying thank you, giving them little bits of, maybe you've got a bonus scheme or a recognition scheme for the work done. That's a good start. But it has to go beyond that. It's more than that. But that's a very good start, to start creating this element of we are recognizing people, we are valuing people. People like to be valued in what they do. Priya Rodriguez, being consistent and fair with an open door policy practice my mind. Great. If you can get that, but there is a tendency for an open door policy within the region, but that allows everyone to go up to the chairman and complain. But it's about, you're right, it's about being consistent, it's about being fair, it's about getting the message across, and it's being transparent, not hiding things. And that starts from the very beginning. I was in a training program today, and people say, oh, we don't want to tell people what the salary is. We ask them what they're earning first. If you want to be a transparent organization, start at the very beginning and continue the way you want to do it. Okay, Michael DePaz. We create an engagement point for our employees focused on addressing issues in the organization. Yeah, so obviously you've carried out some employee satisfaction surveys. You've got some of the issues. I think that's great. And the key word you put there is you address the issues. You do something about it. The worst thing you can do is carry out an employee engagement or employee satisfaction survey and do nothing with the results. Boy, is that bad. Don't do it unless you're prepared and got the resources and got the back end. Obviously, you can't do everything, but show people what they've said, feed it back to them, and say these are the certain areas that you're going to address. Absolutely critical. So thanks for that. Natalie, again, employee engagement meeting with groups to talk about what we do well. Great, right? And not so well, asking what the employees need and attempting to build a business case around this. Excellent, excellent. My time in Anderson, very much we work it on project basis, and what we used to do at the end of project meetings would have a meeting of the project of what worked well, what didn't work well. And we used to do that during the project. And one thing was always said, leave your baggage outside. Don't start blaming people. Get them to say, what could you have done better? And most people say, you know what, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. And providing no one's putting any blame there, then you say, well, how can you get better at that, and what support can we give you? So Natalie, if your company's doing that, you're well on the way to doing it. I'm very pleased with that. How can you change, Michael, deeply rooted culture support engagement? With difficulty. Culture takes a long time to change. You've got to put in and you've got to show the reasons for change. What's in it for me? Give them a reason to change. Show them what the future will be like if things were different. Right? We're all creatures of habit. We're like our comfort zone. Take them out of the comfort zone and show what the future could be like. In small bits, nothing too big, because big change takes time. So it's about showing them, address the what's in it for me question, and get some small wins, quick wins in terms of showing how little changes can start to get that engagement on the line. Priya, create a policy document to define elements of compensation. But yeah, you've obviously, and make that transparent so people understand it. Various channels of communication, fully agree. Communication, and you communicate again. We all think we're good at communication when actually we're not. Clear job descriptions, yes, feedback, reward and recognition schemes. The difficult thing about engagement is you've got so many things to get right. You need to get all of them right. You can't just look at pay. You can't just look at training and development. You can't just look at recognition. You can't just look at build trust. You've got to get all of them together and get them all so they're all focused and all driving the same sort of thing, and then work with the key stakeholders, the managers and supervisors, to get that through the organization. What else could be part of employee engagement other than employee recognition? Engagement is about building trust. It's about showing the managers to give proper feedback. Proper feedback on performance appraisals. Get your performance appraisals on time. Show how learning can help people to grow. Give them opportunities to get into new careers or progress in an organization. So there's many things that you can do there, but you've got to show how they're all integrated. As you shared the survey in different places, I haven't heard that there's any company which is implementing employee engagement practices. There are companies who are doing that. I've seen companies here. If you look at the companies, the top companies, what's it called? Top companies to work for, or something like that. A lot of them are doing. There's a small group of companies doing a lot of things. I think you can learn from that. They're trying to create an environment of trust, of openness, of good communication, of recognition, of giving people opportunities, of growing them. They are out there. And people are doing it, and I do say I see it happening more and more. We do need a bit more of a revolution on employee engagement, and it's people like you. It's people like you taking the time to listen to this who can actually take this forward. And that's something that would engage you if you could engage all your employees. So yes, it is happening. It's not as much as we want to, and we've still got a long way to go, but big trees from small acorns grow, so you've got to start somewhere. If there's any more questions? Okay, I'd just like to thank all of you for coming along here. I hope you've heard from something, and I hope just take one little thing that you've heard from me today and go away and do something different, because that's the way you will get engaged, and that's the way that you can start the process of getting employee engagement embedded within your organization. The best of luck. Thank you.